Ajnulambita Bujo Kanakabadato Sankirtanaika Pitoro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Yugodharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunabhataro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Bodhidai Pushpabandhu Chitro Sandho Tamono Vandeham Shri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charano Sako Sukkado Paramanando Sundaro Subala Priyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchan Gourangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Shri Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Vinod Parivar Ki Jai Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Mahashaya Ki Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande. So, Dzień dobry again, once more. Reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita from the Madhya Lila, third verse of the 7th chapter. E mote sarvabhaumer nishtar korila dakshin gamone prabhur icha upajila. So here it's mentioned that in this way, the nishtar korila, the deliverance of Sarvabhaumer, Nishtar Korila, the deliverance of Sarvabhauma was accomplished. This happened in the previous chapter. And so he's referring, when he says in this way, to the previous chapter. He started this chapter with his Sanskrit verse that we heard, foreshadowing a significant event in this chapter, the miraculous deliverance of the leper Brahmin Vasudeva. And we read about that. And then he, as he typically does in each chapter, offered his respect to the Panchatattva. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jai Dvaita Chandra Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. And now, continuing the narrative with a reference to the previous chapter, which highlights for us the most significant event in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's initial visit in Jagannath Puri. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas during the waxing moon of the month of Phalgun, March, February, January, February, might go into March. And of course, as we know, he, at the suggestion of his mother, to the satisfaction of all the devotees, he proceeded then on to Jagannath Puri from Shantipur, from Advaita's residence. And he stayed in Jagannath Puri then for the balance of Phalgun, the month of Chaitra. I think we mentioned here, he stayed for the Dol Yatra. Dol Yatra means a swing festival, and this is the beginning of the spring. And in the month of Vishaka, here, his Icha Upajila, an Icha, a desire, arose within his heart. After the deliverance of Sarvabhauma, a desire arose in his heart at this time in the month of Vishaka. What is a desire? Dakshin Gamane, Prabhu Gaur, a desire in his heart awakened to go to South India. So the point, one of the points I'm making here is that there's an emphasis here in this chapter, reflecting back on the previous chapter, in the first line of this verse, to the significant deliverance of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So this is in one sense, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Jagannath Puri to deliver Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He stayed for a few months, then he went south. He'll travel for about 2 years and return back. But the deliverance of Sarvabhauma was an earth-shattering event in the subcontinent of India, in the religious world. Bhattacharya was, by contrast with Mahaprabhu, elderly. In fact, he was his father, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's father, was a classmate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's maternal grandfather. What is his name? Nilambar Chakravarti, famous Jyotish. And when the Bhattacharya realized this, that's very touching. He was attracted to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who by contrast was a 24-year-old youth. It's not typical that one will renounce the world at 24 when the whole world is offering itself to you, right? At that age, the whole world wants you. The military wants you. The different industries want you. Your parents don't want you to leave. Everybody wants you. The whole world appears to be offering itself to you. The trends that you're setting at such an age. This is the new current, the new generation. The commercial industry is very much focused on you and so forth. So it's really a huge wave of self-centered influence, right? And you're young and attractive. Like I say, I see some of my godbrothers and godsisters, they put on Facebook that picture of themselves from 1970. So this is a very, to renounce the world at that age, this is shocking. And this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did at 24 years old, right? By contrast, the other sannyasis who were prominent in his mission, who had come from other sampradayas, meeting him in Jagannath Puri, Paramananda Puri, Keshava Bharati, who gave him sannyas, Ishwar Puri, who was his guru. These are all sannyas names: Puri, Bharati, Brahmananda Puri, Keshav Puri, and so on. There are 9 principal sannyasis amongst the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that are thought to form the roots of the metaphorical, allegorical tree of bhakti. It has 2 main trunks that split like this, that are Nityananda and Advaita, and then many branches, right, that represent so many devotees, the Srivas branch, the Gadadhar branch, etc., etc., etc. And of course, the fruits of the tree are praying. This is a beautiful description given by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami earlier in his book in the Adi Leela when he's explaining his book. He begins his book, of course, with the Mangalacharan. I've written a book, as we talked a little bit last night, about the significance of that Mangalacharan. It's about 14 verses. He follows that by 3 verses, which seem to be his own, also of his own Sanskrit composition, glorifying what he has called out as the principal deities of Vrindavan. Jayatam Surato Pangor Mamamanda Matergati Matsarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Dibyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Srimad Ratnagara Singhasanasto Srimad Radha Shilagovinda Devo Prestalibi Sevimano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasaram Vamsi Vatatatastita Karshan Venu Sanera Gopinatha Sri Estunaha. This seems to be his insight, or maybe the first to write about them in this way. The deities of Madan Mohan, who came under the care of Sanatana Goswami, and under his care, the famous Madan Mohan temple manifested. Such a beautiful temple in such a beautiful setting. Very up high, elevated within Vrindavan, overlooking the Jamuna. It's very, very beautiful. You could just imagine what it was like 500 years ago, what kind of place he chose for his bhajan there. Sanatana Goswami, the elder leader of the Goswamis in Gaur Leela. He was very fatherly type of figure for everyone in Vrindavan. We just recently celebrated the Guru Purnim, and it so happens that the Sanatana Goswami, his Tirubhav, the day of his disappearance from the world, his passing from the world, was on the Guru Purnim. Seems very appropriate, right? Amongst the Gaudiyas, again, Rupa defers to him as his guru in his texts, and Jiva Goswami as well, along with Rupa, but Sanatana was the leader, right? And his book, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, this is the first book of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, explaining the essence, if you will, the nectar essence of immortal nectar essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. And his books and his Siksha largely are thought to correspond with Sambandha Tattva. So obeisances pranam, this verse must be Krishnadasa's own verse, to Radha Madan Mohan, Jayatam Surato Pango, Mama Manda Matergati, Mama Manda Matergati. So if you're blind and lame, he says, I'm blind and lame. Yeah. Blind and lame means Gyan, Gyan and karma. Blind, I cannot see. Karma, I'm lame, I cannot walk. I'm affected by the influences, the currents of the world, karma and gyan. Chasing after things and then vomiting and saying, oh, I'll never do that again. Then doing it again, and then giving it up, and doing it again. Bhogatyag, bhogatyag. And then, of course, the Veda, the scripture, systemizes these tendencies, captures these tendencies, the karma tendency, the action, taking, exploiting, taking from the world, and the bhoga and the tyag, giving it up, into schools of karma and gyan for the gradual upliftment, really, of the jiva. Very, very generous the scripture is in the way it seeks to deal with us. The other day, Omkar asked, well, if Krishna is so attractive, why aren't why isn't the whole world attracted to him, or at least the religious world? We're a very small group, right? We're a small group, right? There's only 200 million of us, or so, maybe 300 million of us, Vaishnavas, who say Vishnu is God, Krishna is God, right? And not only 200, 300,000 Vaishnavas, but every other Indian religion, whether there's no other religion, Indian religion really, this is all the Sanatana Dharma. This is all Hinduism, if you like, Sanatana Dharma, that's so inclusive. Karma Marg, they're not Vaishnavas, they say Krishna is God too. How about the Gyan Marg? What about that Shankar? Oh, he has more bhakti than most of us for Krishna. Of course, he has devotion. He said, "Oh, if I could, my choice would be if I could retire along the banks of the Jamuna and just remember the pastimes of Krishna." Of course, we see him, in a scripturally based vision it is, as an incarnation of Shiva. And everybody, Gyanis will agree with that he's the incarnation of Shiva. But we are not Shaivites, but the Gaudiyas have a more flattering understanding of Shiva than even the Shaivites, right? Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, he's there at the gate. Gopeshwar of the Rasa Lila, Stali, determining who will get in, who not. So many beautiful things we have to say about him that will catch his ear more than the Gyanis. Using him for a purpose, then he disappears, right? But of course, you have this neo-Advaitin sector in the world that's largely disconnected from the whole culture that Advaita Vedanta comes out of, and the appreciation, the love, really, in a relative sense, but very intense, on the part of Shankar. Madhusudan Saraswati would be a good example. Things he says about Krishna, even our Vaishnava Acharyas like Vishnacharya Thakur and quoted him in his Gita commentary. And even Madhusudan Saraswati says. So all the Gyanis, they also say Krishna is God. They say that Krishna is the supreme manifestation of Saguna Brahman. That's their idea. So all praise to Ishwar Krishna. So Gyanis, Karmis, what about the yogis? Oh yes, they all acknowledge Krishna as God. Every Hindu, everybody connected to Sanatana Dharma. Now, what is the most populous country in the world? No, India. India has surpassed them. How big is India? How many people? What is it? 1,500,000. 1 billion, yeah, billion. 1,500,000,000. 1.5 billion. 1.5 billion devotees of worshippers of Krishna. Now they have different feelings towards Krishna, but he's God. There's no question there. He said, Jejatamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamiham. Mama vart manu vartante manusya partha sarvas. This is Krishna's statement. He says, how people surrender to me, I reciprocate accordingly. And he says, all people are on my path. He says, there is no other path, he's saying. You talk about the karma marg, gyan marg. It sounds like this is some foreign religion from what we find in your homeland, in Finland. or in Scandinavia or here in Europe, right? Some foreign idea. But you look at the concepts, what's there? What does it mean, karma marg? What does it mean, Gyan marg? And you realize, oh, the Christians are also doing karma marg, most of them. Yeah. In other words, their orientation towards God is in pursuance of material improvement for his, because he wants us to improve, and he has given laws, and we should follow them, the Dharma, and he'll be pleased. And when he's pleased, then our situation will improve, and ultimately we'll go to heaven. I mean, this is the karma marg, and most of Hinduism is on the karma marg, pursuing God for the sake of material acquisition, right? Then in the Christian sector or the Islamic sector, as may be the case, you have your jnanis, your contemplatives, your Mertens, your Rumis, and so forth, right? And then they have some, they also jnanis mixed with bhakti, the two that I've mentioned, and there are many. So this idea of karma marg, gyan marg, this is not relative only to, culturally speaking, to India. They are universal concepts. In other words, an orientation towards God for the sake largely of material improvement, and to follow his rules, because that's the Dharma, that's what we're for, that's our purpose. Or to take it a step further, to realize what I am is different from the body, and ultimately by using my body appropriately, dharmically, I'll come to inquire about my Atma, and transcend the limits of humanity and so forth. And so these concepts, we can find them in every religion. It's just one. It's only one, one religion, one path. And Krishna says, you say, why doesn't everybody worship Krishna? But we would say, another answer, everybody does worship Krishna. He has many faces. Right? Jesus is one face of Krishna. The Buddha is one face of Krishna. Buddha is the wisdom of Krishna. Right? The whole teaching of the Buddha, the whole essence of the Buddha. Krishna's already said it in the Gita before Buddha appeared. He says, what is that verse? Suffering is born from the womb of attachment. Dukkhalaya mashashvatam, the world is full of suffering and it's temporary. This is the whole teaching of the Buddha. That life, what we're experiencing is suffering, and what we want is to bring an end to the suffering. We call it enjoyment, call it happiness, to bring an end. He says it is the thirst for things, attachment, is the mother from whom, or the womb from which suffering is born. The thirst for that. And so to give up that, of course, he has a system for giving that up. It's derived, Buddhism is an outgrowth of Hinduism. Buddha was a Hindu. He was on that side of the river. He was a Hindu. So, different faces. Now, who are they different faces of? Right? I mean, or they're all just a bunch of different faces. We say, Ramadishu, what is that verse? Ramadishu. Niyaminatishtam. Govindam Adi Purusham. Tamam Bhajami. Ram. Murtishu. Niyamenatishtam. Nanabhataram Bhuvaneshu Kintu. So, an important line. Krishna Swayam. So, the argument is that these are all different faces of the Godhead, but Krishna himself is the heart. Jesus is the sacrificing, dutiful sacrificing uh, uh, feature of the Godhead. Buddha is the wisdom, right? And so on. We can go on, but Krishna is the heart, the romantic heart of the Absolute. Well, that's a very, very charming idea. The romantic heart of the Absolute, right? There he becomes captivated by love, right? And so the heart, that's the basis. If the heart stops, it's over. The brain could stop, and we could still be going. It's possible. But the heart stops. So he's the heart, the heartbeat, right? And if you speak about Krishna, we hear about Krishna from someone who has some experience of Krishna. We take drawing as we should from the Bhagavatam, from the Caitanya Caritamrita. Well, he's actually very, very charming. We need to hear more about Krishna. What are his qualities? What are the examples of those qualities, and so forth? You can fall in love with this person. You could think, what a better friend would it be? It's a little harder for us from different culture. We have our own heroes, Polish heroes, American heroes, English heroes, that we grow up with. In India, you grow up with this. From your childhood, you grow up. It's changing now, I suppose, but you grow up. Krishna is the hero of the Mahabharata, right? How wonderful he is, right? So then you hear more from Gaudiya Vaishnavas about his qualities, his playful leelas, the nature of his loving affair, prema madhuri, his leela madhuri, his flute is his weapon. His flute is his weapon. Venu madhurya, he has sweet flute. We heard about this the other day. We were reading from my commentary on Navadvipastakam, right? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, so he must have prema madhurya. He does. He has very extraordinary sweet prema. He must have leela madhurya. Yes, his leelas are very sweet. He must have rupa madhurya. Oh, there are so many descriptions of his beautiful form and so forth, right? But where's the flute? Venu madhurya, right? His flute has come in the form of the mridanga, and it's the heartbeat of the kirtan, in which all the highest theological secrets can be understood. What does that mean? It means that in Krishna Lila, of course, the gopis they try to steal Krishna's flute because the flute makes them look adharmic. When he plays the flute, they leave everything that they shouldn't leave. Water, milk boiling over, obligations to parents, obligations to the village, obligations to children, to husbands. They hear the flute and they go. So in the Krishna Lila, we find there are many Lila, Venuharna Lilas, where the gopis try to steal Krishna's flute, right? And they're trying to steal because he's giving them a bad reputation. His flute is giving us a bad reputation. They're not blaming Krishna, they're blaming his flute. Of course, he's the flautist, so the flute player. So where is the flute in Gaura? Oh, the gopis have all come, right? Rup Sanatan, Jiva Goswami, Radha Pandit, and so forth and so on. So many gopikas. They stole his flute, turned it into a drum, and beating on it. Tell everybody we're not bad. we're okay. He spoiled our reputation. Now you have to make up for that. Sankirtan ki jai, Kol Kartol ki jai, Goat Brahman. So there's a good argument. Whether you have an ear for it or not, that's another thing. We have a certain trajectory based on really karmic momentum from time immemorial, and so not all the flowers blossom in the garden at the same time. How many flowers are there? Infinite. Right? So, but if you listen carefully, there's a very, very good argument for Krishna being the very heart, the romantic heart of divinity, and then arguably the source of other forms. And and this is the astounding thing, that we see that Krishna in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These apostles of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they saw things that and who were they? Who was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was well known in the subcontinent of India, or in Bharat, at the time, for the Indian Republic, obviously, amongst the different kingdoms and so forth. And the powerful Raj Prataprudra of Puri had managed to draw him there into Jagannath Puri, which was a very, due to the influence of the Raj, a very secure place for the Hindus, and impenetrable by the Mughal invaders. He was able to draw Sarvabhauma there, and he was the most important person in Jagannath Puri. Virtually, he was the guru of the king, and he was he's learned. He was so learned. The legend about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was that there was a kind of a mythical place called Mithila in Bihar. I don't think you can really locate it now geographically, but it was the center of learning, it was thought. And Sarvabhauma, as we heard earlier, is from, where's he from? Navadvip. Yes, his father was a classmate of Nilambar Chakravarti. Enter the family. Try to enter this is our family. His father was a classmate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's maternal grandfather. When he realized this about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he only became that much more charming. And how charming it was and how astounding it was that a 24-year-old boy would take sannyas, right? Again, the other sannyasis, as I'm saying, that are the metaphorical, the roots to the metaphorical, allegorical tree of love of God. They were all elders, coming from different Vaishnava sampradayas, or even from the Advaitin sampradaya, and charmed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were elder, heavy, Brahmananda Bharati, wearing the deerskin. I mean, these guys were like, you see these Naga Babas, coming out of the Himalayas. Not quite like that, but they were like out of this world, people, sober, heavy, elder, and this boy charmed them, right? They and others, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, you can see how learned he is. We talked about his literary legacy. It's extraordinary, right? Rup, Sanatan, Kavi Karnapur, so many authors, so many poets. These weren't sheep herders, his apostles. They weren't. They were higher class people, brahmanas and educated people. And in their own right, we take Sarvabhauma as an example. And Sarvabhauma is on the low end, in one sense, of the Parshadas of Chaitanya, the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why? Because Sarvabhauma, we know who is Rupa Goswami, who is Sanatana Goswami, who is Jiva Goswami in Krishna Leela, right? Because if Gaur is Krishna, as the devotees thought, had an epiphany, then they thought, if he's Krishna, where are his associates? Because Krishna is not alone. And then they realized, as I often say, it's us. Where is this? Where are we now? So there are there's more than one text that traces out, based on scripture, based on what learned devotees have said, based on how those devotees have conducted themselves, and their bhava has sometimes eked out and showed itself to the public. And so, this is therefore Sachi, she is Jasoda, and so on and so forth, right? Made that connection with the Braj Leela. But Sarvabhauma has no connection with the Braj Leela. Who was Sarvabhauma in his previous life? Brihaspati, the guru of the gods. What is the position of the guru of the gods compared to Mother Yasoda? Rupa Manjari, Balaram, Gadadhar, Radha, and so forth. So the general statement of Narottam Thakur is what? Gaurangera Sangi Gani Nitya Lila Korimane. The associates of Caitanya Mahaprabhu are all Nitya Siddhas, but Sarvabhauma's not. There's a couple others. Now you could say, what do you mean, Guru Maharaj, that Sarvabhauma was the most important devotee in Puri? What about Ramananda Roy? No, he's not there yet. How did he get there? By Sarvabhauma. This will come here in this chapter. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was allowing his devotees to orchestrate these things. So, yes, Ramananda Roy is more important than Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Amongst unlimitedly important persons, each of them, Ramananda Roy is more important. But he would not be in Jagannath Puri if it weren't for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So, what was his influence otherwise in a worldly sense? I mean, he was the greatest logician of the time. It's said that he had a successor, Raghunath Shiromani. The story goes that and he's very famous, Raghunath Shiromani, and he was in Navadvip in the Adi Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were both in a boat crossing the Ganga, right? And he had written a book. This book, at the time, this was called Nabha-Nyaya. So it's a kind of a new form of the Nyaya philosophy, which is very, heady, yeah. And so Raghunath said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he had written a book about Nyaya, and he at some point he wanted to give it to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to get an endorsement. Maybe you'll endorse my book. He told him that I have a desire, he said, to be the greatest logician of all of India. Raghunath Shiromani told Mahaprabhu, and I've written a small book. Mahaprabhu said, I wrote a book too. And he produced the book on the spot. He just happened to have it with me. And since you are going to be the greatest logician in all of India, in all of Bharat, in all the world, he would have said at the time, or the whole world, that was his ambition, then I want to get your endorsement ahead of time. Please read my humble attempt here at Nabha-Nyaya. And Raghunath started reading one page, another page, and then he began to weep and soil the pages that they could not be read further. Mahaprabhu said, why are you weeping? He said, because now my desire to be the greatest logician in all the world has just gone out the window. And Mahaprabhu said, well, give me the book back. And he threw it in the Ganga. Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. And Raghunath is celebrated even today. You can read about him in Wikipedia or something, in Google. But he was a student of Sarvabhauma, who is said to have gone to Mithila, where the texts for this Navanyaya were kept, and they weren't allowed to be taken out because they wanted to maintain the fame, right, of being the seat of like the Harvard, the Yale, the Oxford, the I don't know what it is in Poland, but that kind of institution, right, of learning. And so what Sarvabhauma legend has it did was he came from Navadvip to Mithila. He learned it, committed it to memory, went back to Navadvip and wrote it all out in Bengali. And Navadvip became the center of learning. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya Ki Jai. I mean, this is a big guy, important person, significant person. And this 24-year-old sannyasi charmed him and defeated him in the conversion of him. This is mentioned here in the verse that we're discussing. He delivered him from Advaita Vedanta. And it's not that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was not aware of Vaishnava Vedanta. He is said to have had debates with Shankaranya from Assam, who was another famous devotee of the Bhagavatam. I mean, his brother-in-law was Gopinathacharya. He was a Vaishnava. Sarvabhauma thought he was a little sentimental, and he thought Ramananda Roy was a little sentimental and a little like crazy. Couldn't understand that guy. This is what he told Mahaprabhu. So the conversion of Sarvabhauma is a huge event, and this is the first really conquest, if you will, with regard to the preaching and the dissemination that constitutes the public life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He did Nam Kirtan, and then he explained the Nam Dharma when the opportunity arose. There are two sides to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dispensation. His side, speaking to the learned people, to the Sarvabhauma Bhattacharyas, to the Venkata Bhattas in South India, to Prakashananda Saraswati amongst the Advaitins, and so on and so forth. Huge luminaries they were in their own fields, well known and so forth, and all elderly and whatnot. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, 24, 25 years old, he was converting them. So this was his center of focus, if you will. I mean, he gave love of God everywhere, just by looking at people, but if you're a little simple, and it's a little easier. If you're too complicated, then he just sit down and talk to you a little bit. But even the way he did that, how did he convert Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? Principally, he just became silent. The sound of silence, it deafened Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He had to plug his ears. I can't listen to the sound of your silence any longer. What is going on in the depths of your being as I give my all in all here to teach you Advaita Vedanta, and bring you, give you the sobriety, the groundedness of the Gyan of Advaita, so that you will not be affected by the Vaishnava sentiments and that are so they seem like worldly and, less intelligent, emotional people may need this bhakti, something. But those who come from that side within our circle of Advaita, we have to give them more knowledge. There's one moth amongst the four moths of Shankaracharya where bhakti is prominent as a means to Sayuja Mukti, to merging with Brahman. That's the Govardhan moth. It's in Jagannath Puri. The interesting thing is that it's thought in the Shankara Sampradaya that bhakti is for the emotional and Gyan is for the intelligent people, more intelligent people. So there's one school, one moth, one monastery of Shankar, where the bhakti is prominent, these should be the less intelligent sector, right? Who needs to be, kind of like fortified with more knowledge, let's say. But it's from that lot that so many became fortified by bhakti and came out and became Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's followers, the Keshava Bharati, the Brahmananda Bharati, the Ishwara Puri, Madhavendra Puri, and so on and so forth. Sridhar Swami, the famous Sridhar Swami in his Bhavarta Deepika commentary on Bhagavatam. He is written in their books there. He was the leader of the whole Govardhan Math at Jagannath Puri. And he departed on the wave of bhakti, rather than going the other side, right? As I'm saying. So the power of bhakti, after all, bhakti can give mukti. Bhakti can give gyan. But gyan can't give bhakti. So bhakti is superior. It has greater power. And Mahaprabhu's movement is a testament to that. These heavy guys from Advaita Sampradaya, they came under his influence. And Sarvabhauma, no one could be a better example. He was a Kshetra sannyas, so that means that he was married, but he was a householder, but he had a vow to remain in Jagannath Puri, and he used to teach young sannyasis who were obviously part of the Govardhan Math, who were influenced by bhakti. He would teach them to strengthen them and pull them away from emotionalism and so forth. And his conversion, this guy, the dry uses cakes of logic that he would, call a feast. This is all the descriptions of his conversion in the previous chapter. He became very emotional, very emotional, very, very comprehensive. Mahaprabhu tested the measure of his conversion. He came to him one morning, early in the morning, from the Jagannath temple, bearing Jagannath Prasad. And he said, "Knock, knock, Bhattacharya, I brought Prasad." Bhattacharya rose and opened his eyes and honored the Mahaprasad, praised the honor Mahaprasad Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnaves. And he honored Prasadam. And Mahaprabhu said, "You didn't bathe first? You didn't follow this Smarta rule, that Smarta is, of course, the religious division of the Advaitin, mysticism, right? Yeah. And so all the rules, they're very heavy caste-oriented sect. That's another big topic, very interesting topic. But in other words, Mahaprabhu was testing, is his bhakti, he seems to be converted, but is his bhakti covered by karma? Covered by karma means if you think that if I follow the dharmic injunctions, do this first, before then my bhakti will be enhanced. And if I don't follow the karmic injunctions, my bhakti will be diminished. This means that your idea of bhakti is covered by gyan. And Rupa Goswami says, Gyan karmadi anavritam. This is the marginal characteristic of his uttam bhakti that we are all on the path of. We are sadhakas on the path of uttam bhakti. Our bhakti should not be covered by karma. And the idea that bhakti is in any way dependent upon karma. It's independent entirely. It is its own path. And bhakti will be enhanced only by bhakti. If bhakti could be enhanced by karma, then karma must be better than bhakti. No. But the karma, the Dharma Shastras, this is for the masses of people who really don't have a genuine spiritual, and they want religion. They're not interested in a relationship with God. They want to get something from God, so they can have a relationship with somebody else. Oh, well, that's most people, right? So, so, then, later, of course, Sarvabhauma showed, oh, his bhakti is not covered by mukti either. Mahaprabhu came and said, what are you doing today, Sarvabhauma? As if he didn't know. And Sarvabhauma said, well, I'm studying the Bhagavatam, but this one verse, I really don't like it here. Yeah. His Brahma is very learned with his four heads, but this is what he said. What is the verse? He says, Tatenu kampam susamikshamana bhujana yavatma kritam vipakam hridvagvapubir hiram namaste jivetayo mukti pare sadayabhak. The word mukti is there. And Sarvabhauma said, just see, here's what I'm doing today. I crossed out the word mukti and I put the word bhakti in there. The very word mukti had become repulsive to him. Thinking of merging into Brahman and having no service, no relationship with Bhagavan. Mahaprabhu said, Sarvabhauma, you can't cross out a word of the Bhagavatam. But it's very charming to see the measure of your conversion. Let me give you a commentary on that verse so that you can understand it properly. And he said, Mukti Pade means mukti at the feet of Bhagavan, not independent of the feet of Bhagavan. At the feet means in service to Bhagavan. That kind of mukti. So he tested him. His bhakti was pure. So here he's just reflecting back, Krishna's Kaviraj, on that previous chapter, the conversion of Sarvabhaumacharya. This is the first, as I say, of the conversions, the major conversions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought about. That were just like earth-shattering. You can imagine, the word came back to Navadvip, Sarvabhauma has, it's a new religion, they thought. In Navadvip, even they would think, some kind of new religion, they chant the name of God. And they do it at night, all night long. If you keep chanting the name of God, then it will lose its power. They had arguments like this and so forth. Even so they didn't understand. After all, it is the Dham of Goloka. Is the wealth of Goloka. Golokero Premodhan Harinam Sankirtan. Then that is Golok is, what's another name for Golok? What did you say? No. Shweta Dweep. Dweep means island. The white island. Pure island. It's like you hear about some guy down off the shores. Where's that Kambijai live? What is that place? Cyprus. He didn't come this year. Stuck in Cyprus Avenue. In the bay, wherever. There's an ocean there, right? Must be. Anyway, somewhere out in the ocean, there's a private island. Some guy lives out there. People there are stories about it, what happens. This is Golok. It's like a private island. Even the people in Vaikuntha don't know about it. And the very heart of it all, the heartbeat of it all, Golokher Premodhan, the Premodhan, the wealth of Prem. Prem is the dhan, the wealth of Golok. Golokher Premodhan, Harinam Sankirtan. It's coming through the medium of Nam Sankirtan to this world. Rajendra Nandana Jay, Sachi Sutta Hoilo say, Balaram Hoilo Nitai. Brought by Gaur, Nityananda Prabhu, who are Krishna and Balaram, respectively, right? So even in Navadvip, this religion was a new thing, but it was gaining ground, right? Advaita was there, Shiva Thakur, before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were propagating the Nam Dharma. It's in the text and so forth. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became a Vaishnav, then they gained so much strength. And then they began to philosophize and teach about it under his direction and so forth. And so it came to Puri. And I said the other day, when the king saw this entourage. When Mahaprabhu went south, and he's going to go south now for 2 years, then he'll come back to Puri. And when he comes back to Puri, there will be a messenger, right? And that's a very interesting story. It will come up here. There will be a messenger. Someone went with him. And anyway, it's an interesting, anyway, he goes back and starts to tell Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's return. And now the first convoy headed by Shivananda Sen, Advaita is coming and others, all from, as Sachi said, if you go to Jagannath Puri, there's always people passing for pilgrimage back and forth between Navadvip and Jagannath Puri. So we'll hear about you. Devotees can come on the pretext of coming to the Ratha Yatra to see the wooden Krishna. They were actually coming to see the moving, stationary Krishna, to see the moving and dancing Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who captured Jagannath, right? So they heard that, the news, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has been converted. How it's like, some senator or something, or some politician, some parliamentary member or whatever has become, has come to the Polish Yatra with here. So it's a huge news, right? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is the one side of his mission. He's preaching to these kinds of people. And this was the first major conquest. And then one after another like this, developing his whole mission, setting a wave of his Sankirtan in motion. The other side, of course, is Nityananda Ram. And then we'll come to talk about him next. Nityananda Ram, the first Democrat. It was a welfare campaign, liberal, leftist. There's Nityananda Prabhu, big leftist, and making sure nobody gets left out. That's his left. Nobody will be left out. Everyone has to have a meal of Krishna Bhakti. If I have to go myself and pay obeisances to them, ask them to worship Gaur, I will do that. Nityananda Ram ki jai. So here we learned today a little bit about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, his influence, his significance, his conversion, right? During the month of Chaitra. Mag Shukla Pakshe Prabhu Korila Sanyas Falgune Osiya Korila Lila Chalebas. More or less explained this already. He took sannyas in the month of Falgun during the waxing moon, which means the second part of the month. And then in month of Chaitra, he came to Jagannath Puri. In that month, he converted Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And a little after that, in the month of Vishaka, this Upajila, Icha Upajila, Icha, the desire arose in his heart to go to South India. Why? Why would he want to go to South India? Oh, and he's just practically converted all of Jagannath Puri because he's converted the guru of the king. And off he goes, the independent Swami Bhagavan, Gaur Hari, Gaur Krishna ki jai, Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaur Premanande. So to be continued. Right? What is the time? Okay, so save your questions. We'll have some sessions where you can ask questions. We'll get together again this evening. Maybe then, or maybe we'll continue the discussion here. We'll see. Gaur Premanande Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.